All right, we are live. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How's it going today?
It's going good over here in the Grand Canyon state. We are warm compared to you, apparently. How about you, Matt?
It is 32 degrees on the dot here. I just dropped my
Dang.
kid off at school and he got out of the back seat with shorts and a t-shirt. I said, "Where's your jacket?" I'm so glad his mom wasn't with us, but he hopped out and I said, "It's cold out there, son." He said, "I'll be okay."
I'll be
You'd
okay.
be surprised how many kids are still wearing hoodies and shorts up here, even when it's 0 degrees
Really?
or below zero. It's a thing up here. But anyway, it's January 10th. It is our 99th episode, meaning next week we're going to do something a little special. But today we've got something special too, because we've got Matt Lynn joining us. Michael's got to ditch out about halfway through today, so Matt's going to be helping us out. But today we're going to be talking about tool variations and how you can do the same thing different ways. But before we get started, I had a couple housekeeping type of things. Number one, if you are still on Review 20 and you need to add more seats, you can add maintenance until the end of January. So you got a couple more weeks left before you can no longer add maintenance to those seats. Number two,
I want to interrupt that, because
do.
I thought you weren't able to add maintenance to a non-existing maintenance perpetual license.
I think they changed that. And that's with this promotion thing till the end of January, where you can go back and add maintenance.
So this is because we were wondering if they were going to do a deal for those folks that had already purchased the perpetual license. Maybe this is that. You can still add. So that would be the case if you had perpetual licenses that are like 17, 16, 12, or whatever. You would then add maintenance, but you would have to upgrade, right, to the newest.
Yeah.
So you'd pay the upgrade and then the maintenance cost. And then you switch to subscription. And
Correct.
You're only paying the lower cost versus the new subscription costs.
Correct.
Okay.
And speaking of costs, if you do need to add more seats, as of February 1st, prices are going up. So if you want to buy more perpetuals of Review 20, those prices are jacking up about $100 come February 1st. So get on it. Also, as always, you have until March 21st to continue using 19 and below. Otherwise, it's all going to die. So get your maintenance, get upgraded, get on it. You got nothing better to do today.
Yeah, you'll still be able to access it. But yes, like Jason is saying, if your computer goes down, it gets unregistered, you no longer have access to that license. And also Studio is no longer active for those licenses either. Doesn't mean your Studio goes away. I mean, it will once it deactivates because you didn't get into it. It just means that once you sign into Review 20, they're still there, or 21.
Correct. But anyway,
Alex said no matter when your renewal is. So that would be your renewal would be maintenance, right? Because if you were on perpetual, you don't have maintenance. So you can still add existing licenses to your renewal date. I guess that would make sense too. Like, well, what about your renewal date? Do you still pay the pre-existing cost because your renewal was on that cost for that contract?
Yeah, it's the end of January before you can no longer add them, I think. Pretty sure. I got to find some documentation on that.
But if they're increasing by $100 in February, are you paying the new $100? No, because that's just buying the seats outright. So you would still have to pay the new outright cost of whatever it is at that cost. Okay.
Right. I'll see what I can find that's customer facing and put it on the MCR LinkedIn group today.
Okay. So, and if you have questions and you are going through this, hopefully your current reseller is helping you. If you're not with us here at ATG, and if you are here with us at ATG, we'll help walk you through that, as well as Jolie. And you could probably ask Jolie
next week,
Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll have her back on as well. But in the meantime, I'll put it on the LinkedIn group if I can find something customer facing. I should have prepared that this morning, but I was just too excited, as every Tuesday morning, to see your smiling faces. All right.
I can start today if you want.
Go for it.
And then I'm going to be departing because I am hosting our boot camp. This is something we will do again, by the way. It's this whole week at 8 a.m. MST to 10 a.m. and it's 2 hours, and it doesn't matter which one you show up to. They're all different, and maybe I don't know if we have a link, DJ CJ. I don't know where that link is to them. Just for topics, because we will be repeating this again in the future, just because so many folks decided to join. We figure that there may be more, and it just wasn't the right timing for other folks to maybe do it again another time. So if that's something you're interested in, we would like you to put that in the survey, because we will definitely rehost another one maybe next quarter sooner if we get more, happiness for it, I guess.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people excited about it, so I'm glad it's going well.
And so that's 2 hours per session. And how many sessions?
5.
So that's 10 hours
10
of
hours.
training.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
And you get a recording of it at the end too. So if you didn't go to one and you were missing something, and it's not a traditional Bluebeam course in terms of an essentials course. It's more tailored to those separate different things like document management, document revision. There's one for field. There's one for Bluebeam Cloud. The intro into review was kind of like an essentials course, but it was only 2 hours instead of 6. So
something else that Michael mentioned previously is if you miss Monday and Wednesday, you're not going to be behind Friday. It doesn't build on each other. Each session is its own thing. And then you get the recording for when you missed, you won't be behind.
Yep.
That's a clever way to do it.
Yeah, it was a little bit more prep this time because it's not an essentials course. It's building off of one itself. It's something I had to come up with for it to work that way as well. All right. So let's start. So this is a great segue, I guess, too, as well as we're looking at this, the ability to recover unsaved documents. So I was marking up and just close out a review, apparently, which typically happens all the time for me. And just being able to have document recovery, this is a selection. I think it's by default, almost certain it is. So if you go to your preferences, you go to document, enable document recovery as well. So just so we're aware, that is a setting that you can go through and set up in your preferences. I know when I was doing some of the training yesterday, some of the folks were asking, can preferences be set up globally for when the install happens? This can. We did even though it's review 21, but if you go to our deployment video that we did with Kyle Davis, who is one of our senior support specialists, he detailed how we can import and export these and create an MSI additional package with our deployments to deploy these out to a company-wide server. I know there's a lot of admin uses in here, or there are some people that are more admin oriented in here. How can we deploy this and what are the different ways we can? So that's one of those. And just being aware that this can be deployed in that way. Seeing in the future where Revu is going, Revu should be installed everywhere. That way, in any new desktop that's being shipped out, because you sign in by a user license. That way, regardless if a person has it or not, it's still a reader. You can still open it. You can still take dimensions. They don't stay, and you can still open 3D PDFs from the reader as well, which I know you can't do in other solutions unless you pay for their higher tier product.
Right.
I don't name names, but
and we do have a Bluebeam for admins coming up in the next month or two, all about setting it up and dealing with some of those settings. But important thing to note with that document recovery, it only works if you have one version of Revu open. I see the chat's talking about this too, but if you've got multiple instances of Revu open, it's only going to do the first one. So be careful with that.
for what?
It's for the document recovery to work.
Oh, yeah, because it caches it. So you want to make sure that you're not tabbing. You're tabbing in one instance of Revu. You're not having multiple instances of Revu open to open up PDFs. So just keeping multiple documents open in the singular session, right? Tabular format here.
Yeah. And while you were in there, you had there's a maximum zoom setting, and I think you had it at 64%. And David wanted to know, is there any reason not to increase your maximum zoom? Seems like 6,400% is a lot.
I don't know. This was default. I've never changed this. What's the maximum zoom for?
Like when you zoom
zoom
now,
up
I
the-
would assume you can keep zooming.
Weird.
How high will it go?
12,800 max.
It gave me one extra scroll.
Enhance. Yes. That's where my brain was going to, Alex. Seems like that 12,800 would be a good trivia question. Again, for XCon, get it in there. We're going to dominate this year.
I need that extra scroll. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you need it. And I'm looking at some, I drew this set, so I'm like, oh man, this dimensions that's going all the way through to here.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Oh well. Okay.
All right. So in Revu, there are multiple ways to do the same thing, right? We've talked about this a little bit when it comes to, do you use a hotkey? Do you use the pull down? Do you use the toolbar? But there's some other hidden things in there too. And I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were deciding, what topics to do for 2023. So anybody in the chat, if you've got ideas or ones that you want to share, go for it. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of run loose. And I know that we wanted to revisit the polyline archy thing, right?
How you can create it into arcs.
I think so. I think that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about. Because there's some different variations you can do with Alt or Control or Shift, which is also, spoiler alert, what we're going to talk about a lot today.
No.
Another topic that could be helpful is, when I was in the industry, I used Bluebeam Review primarily for submittal review. And then each project has, a lot of submittals, could be up to like 100 or so. So maybe some method of organization of how to organize all your submittals, and just intuitively think it probably has something to do with Studio Project, but just some sort of database and organization for the entire team, including both the contractors and design team, to quickly access all these submittals.
And that's where I would segue and say that Bluebeam Cloud would be the area for your submittals, because there is the submittal solution in there. But if you were to do it in here, I would probably do a Studio Project with a dashboard that keeps all of your documents organized for those submittals. That way you can probably link, because you may want to attach it or link it to a location on the document set. And that's one way you could, because you can link to that file in the project for your submittal item.
So there's a topic.
Yeah, that one's not on the list. I thought we were going to, but there we go. We'll put that in for March.
Oh, Liz has one here on her site. Let's see what it is. Creating curves. Under 10 minutes.
The line that you just drew.
Yeah. Oh, this is cool.
Most of the things on Liz's site are cool. Everybody should bookmark that.
Yeah, this is a fancy blog.
You make your own GIFs or GIFs. That's a whole other thing.
Oh, this is the arrow. Yeah. So going through and the ability to, I used Control for this, but you can, I always hit escape. What you can do is you can hover over the node holding Control, and that will allow you to see this arc button selection, and you can click it that way, or you can right click on the node and convert to arc. So just a couple of different ways that you have the option of converting these nodes into arcs. to go through and utilize the control, or you can right click the node always. The shift button over the node subtracts that node out. And then you can always go through and right click and add a control point back to have another node added to it.
Interesting.
Holding control, click and drag. Yep. Okay.
Ooh, good question from David. What's the difference between a curve point and a curve segment?
It looks like it's just an arc-ish. So I think that reverted it back. Yeah. Curve would be an arc, I guess. So they have two spots for it. No, maybe not, because arc isn't actually, is it the whole line it's converting to an arc, not the node? Yeah, it's the line that was doing it. The node point is being converted into an arc or a curve. The line gets changed into a curve by that other node. So it's this point to this point that gets added as a convert to arc.
Previously, I saw you had two controls on the same point. That looked like it was helpful.
I think it's these, which are their drags for it.
But there was one that had two different angles. Like, could you right click and add another one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could see that being helpful. Coming to a point and then coming out at two different curves.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So you're going through some kind of advanced stuff with going through pylons. And I see a question here from Kim, first time joining. Welcome, Kim. Welcome to MCR. Thanks for joining us today. Question is there a basic class or a meeting that goes through some of the basic items? And yeah, we've talked about this a little bit last week in on our previous edition, and we've also done some other ones with where to get started in Revu. So go check out our old classes on the playlist. So there's 98 episodes, 99 after today,
99
of other things, but otherwise, if you've got a specific question, we can certainly throw them on there. So it looks like there's some links getting in the chat, so you should be good to go.
I was already here. So.
All right.
I was going to say a great place to start is that number 2 that Michael started showing right there.
Yeah, that was the one from last week.
Yeah.
But we did one last. There's a 2-part series that we did. Blooming into Bluebeam. There we go. That's a good place to start. So 35 and then 34. That will get you up to speed real quick with how do you get started with the software?
This is YouTube. Yeah, the links are above from me and events, which is DJ CJ.
And the boot camp is already ongoing. Started yesterday, but probably still jump in today if you wanted
to. You would have to talk with somebody, and
it'd be kind of tricky.
Yeah,
And it starts in
the last
10 minutes.
Yeah. Because we did intro into Revu. We're doing document management today. Tomorrow we're doing document revision, studio and field, and then Bluebeam Cloud.
Pretty cool. So some of you will be joining Michael here in about 10 minutes. And then Matt and I will just take over, and then it'll just be free for all at that point, right?
And then I would say another tip would be the creation of custom markups. So like a sequence, for instance, we'll just do a sequence for this case. Well, no, we'll do a count because the selection order does matter. And we learned this the other day I learned it, and I don't know if anyone else learned it when I was going through this. But the ability to go through and selection order for these, if you do a select all versus selecting and then shift to select the box, because the properties of the box will basically go to the shape versus the number, so which is text, and that would give it the comment that it is there. Because if you group these, then you can create this into a count, and then from there this can have its own data and it's not changing the information that's there. Or
Could you
even
back up real
outside of it
quick?
too.
How did you make those two things become one?
So that was the selection order that we were going to go through. So basically selecting the text itself and then selecting the shape itself next, right clicking and creating into a group, Control G. So for this though, now I can, type in data into the comments because we have the markups list that itemizes all the information for it, right? But then we don't have to worry about it changing the text itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the other way to do this, which is what I was going to go through, is instead of having to worry about the order, I think we did this last time. And if you use the select all feature, so select or V, if you do this, it appropriates the order because you can group it, and now it's fine. It doesn't matter which order you selected. Or I think it was, yeah, and also someone told, I don't know if it was Liz or Alex that said this too, you can always tell as well which one was the last selected by the color of the nodes. So yellow was previous, most recent selected is green.
And that's really kind of hard to see too. So I feel bad for any colorblind folks because that's not a big difference between that yellow and that green, but that could be me.
If you scroll out to here, maybe.
Something else you did, which I'd never seen, which is really cool, is when you selected both and you aligned the one to the center of the other one.
Yeah.
You quickly click through it, but that was pretty cool, actually.
So you would want it didn't really align to center. It was going to bug me, so I really breezed through that, so no one noticed. But the align to center and then this middle align, you want to make sure that this text is that way in alignment so that it aligns appropriate to the box here. So then you would do that, right? So I'm holding shift to multi-select, and then you go to alignment, and then you would do this align to middle, and then align to center, then align to middle. After this text has this middle alignment so that this is aligned by its text box. So now it's centered.
Cool.
So Liz has got a question. Why do the number inside the box instead of using the box outline for the text? Because you used a text box to do that command. Why not just use that shape?
I always show shapes because some folks don't like the shapes that are offered as their icons. So I always show things that are outside of this realm. But you can always use the shapes that are here. Just be aware if you're going to use shapes that are here, any comment association to the information goes to the number association here. And some people, again, don't like the size that's here. So you'd have to scale it, all that good stuff.
There are Pentagon type people. Yes, I know it gets weird. But the box that Michael drew was more of a upright rectangle, so you have more control of the actual shape you want. You are limited when you use the out of the box, no pun intended, shapes for the text. But
so going through and customizing these in the multi-select versus having to worry about, I don't even think it matters. Yeah, because it's going to group it the most last selected. Just being aware of the multi-select and the option to go through and do that. And actually, I do think it matters, even though I had the last one selected. Yep. So just make sure when you're grouping these, even if you do the multi-select, you don't right-click over the number or the letter. It's the shape when you click to group. Because what you're worried about is this comment, unless you're not worried about the metadata. But that's the whole point of using this solution, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I need to depart here and open up my session. Thank you all. I'll leave you in great hands. Thanks, Matt, for hopping in and saving the day. And I'll depart.
Enjoy your boot camp.
The boot camp.
Thank you. We will.
All right. I'll start sharing my screen here. And that's probably good timing because there was a reference to Huey Lewis in the news, and I was gonna bet that Michael's never heard of them. But we'll find out next week. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what we find out. Does Michael know Huey Lewis?
Was that a hip to be square comment?
Yep,
Sure.
It sure was. All right. So yeah, the boot camp started yesterday. Given the success of it, we'll probably do it again next quarter, which will be a really good time. That link was in the chat somewhere.
And if we see a lot of demand, we'll go more than once a quarter.
Exactly. All right. So back on topic, kind of. So we're talking about variations, different ways to do the same thing. And where Michael left off was, using the text box here to create a box of text, right? So if I say text, oops, come on, fingers. When I create this text box, notice that I have an option to create a shape. So if I want that in a square, I have to give it a color. I have different options here. If I want to put it in a circle, triangle, I do not have my auto wrap on, so it's not going to be centered. If I do Alt Z, that will auto size that text box accordingly. So depending on the size of the text, the shape will get bigger. So if I make that 22, it's making that shape bigger, right? See, David almost got me with the squirrel, but not today. See, now I can't forget about it. Topic? What topic? See, we go down rabbit holes. So if you were expecting an on-topic session today, you're out of luck. Yeah, day ain't over yet. All right. So this text box, why am I using a square or not using this shape instead of what Michael did by doing the actual box here and then putting in a piece of text? You're not going to get an auto shape. So if I make this much bigger, nothing's going to happen to the outside. It screws with the alignment, but it does make your metadata much better, right? So
I see the whole scaling of that shape a big one. Like when you had that triangle that was getting bigger and smaller. I mean, when it comes to drawing standards, if triangle meant delta, which it typically does, or whatever your symbol means,
right,
it's going to drive everybody nuts if they're all slightly different.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing. If I do 2, and then if I, basically copy the same number and put, 200 in here. Oh,
yeah,
it's going to make it funky, right? And I can do this and I can still do that. But look, no matter what I do, that's as small as it's going to go. So that's where you would want to use the group instead. Unless you know that you're not going to have 2 digits, because even if you do 2 digits, it's still bigger.
Yeah. If it's something without text, like that data sign below, you may be fine. Well, even then, it's a risk. Never mind.
Why am I using text box over typewriter? That's a good question. So if you haven't used typewriter, it's a pretty cool tool. I only tend to use typewriter when I know I want to fill in something specific like this, right? So the typewriter tool, we'll go here to markup, go to typewriter. This icon is not on my toolbox, my toolbar, which is kind of weird, right? I can add it if I wanted to customize it, but that's for another day. So if I want to use typewriter, you can go to markup and go typewriter, or here I'm going to use the hotkey and type in W. So somewhat back on topic, different ways to do the same thing. You can use the hotkey to type that in. Why would I use typewriter? Notice how it lets me place this wherever I want to, right? So if I say date, I can go 1/10/23. Has anybody screwed that up so far for the year? And then when I hit enter, I can do a new line, right? So if I say 1/11/2023, what's the difference with this? These are together, right? It does create multi-line information, but it acts a little bit different than the text box itself.
Now you can convert that into a text box, correct? If you start with a typewriter, right click, can you convert it to a text box?
I can still auto size it.
I may
I'm-
have dreamed that up.
you've got spacing, you've got some other commands here. I don't know if you can actually convert it, because even if you change it. All right. Rabbit hole. Here we go. It does show up different in the markups list, regardless of what I do. So even if I can put a fill on here, and I can do shapes. It's still a typewriter. Interesting. And I can create a box. Where was my shape? Rectangle. Change your margins. Yeah, there's still controls in here. I tend to only use typewriter for a single word when I'm filling in something that's there. But does anybody else use typewriter like regularly? I'm curious. Can you add typewriter as a text in the markups list or in the tool chest? I believe you can, right? Because it shows up as your recent tools. If I drop this over here, so there's one for you, Kim. Every tool that you use in Review gets tracked in your recent tools, but these are going to go away as soon as you close Review. So if you want to save them, you got to drag them into a different toolbox. So you can go here, manage tool sets, make your own. Here I've made my collection of tools where I drag that text box right down here. So now that lives here, I can drop that in at any time if I want the same information. Now, different ways to do the same thing. I can always right click on that and change it to properties mode, or I can double click on it. Double click. See how that icon changes? And the difference is when I do this again, now when I type whatever, it's going to give the same properties. Keep that green, keep that font height, all that other stuff.
Good stuff. It looks like one of your tools is an entire detail, like maybe a parking space.
That's exactly what that is. Dang. Good eye. So yeah.
So that's cool. You could have, you could have a bunch of details when you come in and start to create, your detail sheet.
Yep. And that's what I was trying to go at with this one. Is you can configure Review and have different toolboxes for different things. And, details are tricky, right? So if I've got details, I can put them on here, tell it to go to scale. This one is actually that scale way too big because that came from a civil plan. Yeah, but exactly. Good note on that. Good luck editing that detail if things change. Yes, that is the problem, right? Because Review is not CAD, right? This is a snapshot, meaning I can't edit this text. I can't, move any of the things. I can just take a snapshot and I can manipulate things, but might as well just create a new one from CAD.
So it's an image, right? Therefore, it's not snappable. It's not vectors.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, let's find out. It is snappable. Look at
Oh,
that.
look at that. So you could trace it.
I could trace it, yeah.
So you could use your calibration to get the scale right.
I can't do this. I can't edit any of the text, right? Whereas if I was here, I can go in here and go to edit PDF content, edit text.
Right, because that came from a vector format to begin with. Jason's
Correct.
layer, I like that.
Well, just because it's got all these references. Avenger Mansion, Fortress of Solitude.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
Very nice.
It's a funny one. Anyway, hey, look, bonus cat. It's a cat. We're cat sitting. Anyway, you can change colors of snapshots. Good tip, Isaac. Let's do this too. So with snapshots, how this works clever is you can go here and change colors. So if I want to go make this red, for example, as like a red line, add this detail, I can tell the source color black. So wherever you find black, go ahead and make that red. right? Now, this gray color, it didn't change. But this works well if you're trying to convey, if you're telling people to go add a detail, they might not know what detail to add. You can have them here in your snapshots, drop it in as red. That way the drafter knows to go add that one to your plan set.
Could I screen that? Lower the opacity?
That's a good question. I've never tried.
The blend mode is currently on normal. I'm guessing, well, yeah, there's the opacity. And then the quick method is change the blend mode. Up at the top. Oh, yeah, there too. Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Oh,
well,
that screened it too much.
Yeah, that's too much screen there.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on messing with all the different blend modes, mainly with stamps. Some of it makes a big difference. Otherwise, I just leave it alone.
Yeah.
For those Photoshop folks.
It's nice for watermarks.
Yeah, there you go. We didn't talk about watermarks when we did stamps. That's a perfect use for doing that.
2023 topic.
There we go. There we go. But anywho, all right. Different ways to do the same thing, trying to stay somewhat on topic here. So going back to our keyboard shortcuts. So there is a keyboard shortcuts guide. If you go up to help, you can go to keyboard shortcuts. For those who love these types of things, these are all in here. You can learn them accordingly. But if
I
you
never knew that.
If you like to customize things, you can come up to review and go to keyboard shortcuts and modify them to your heart's content. So if you're a typer into AutoCAD, you can make a match, which is pretty cool, right? But if you change any of these, it does not update your keyboard shortcut guide. Fair warning.
I did not know that guide existed. That's pretty awesome.
This one?
Yeah, never saw that before.
You don't have the Bluebeam mouse pad either?
I'm sure I had it. I just never
these?
clicked that button. Oh, I do not. Where do I get one of those?
Oh, I'm sure DJ CJ can rustle one up from the office somewhere.
I want one of those. Best feature they have ever added, in my opinion. Looks like Jason froze up on us, which is not ideal, seeing as he's driving. That's all right. He's coming back. Let's hit some of these questions. Okay, multiply. Isaac's noting that could be a great way for to edit stamps, which is what we did in a previous episode. Alex Smith has provided a www.getconcert.com. I don't know if that is a shortcut to these hotkeys, perhaps. I wonder if I should just take over and drive. Let's see. Is there any way? Michael is totally frozen. And Michael is gone. Carrie, would you like to join us? Let's see. Maybe just via voice. All right, guys, I'm going to do my best here. I'm going to open the joys of live webinars. Yeah, thank you. So just so you guys know, they asked me to come on. They're like, you just need to watch the chat. No big deal. We'll pretty much run it. And then they fall off. That's okay. Oh, looks like he's coming back. There he is. Jason? All right.
Okay.
So we can see
totally
you.
Just went down.
Okay, I was about to go live with my Bluebeam and share, but now I don't need to share.
And I did think it was the cat because I have my little mesh router like down below my desk, and that's where he was just running around. So anyway.
Good. Saved the day. I was about to go live and just kind of go on the fly.
Well, that would have been fun. Right?
Yeah, totally.
All right. Let me get caught up here with the chat. There was something about polylines and stuff right before I got disconnected. Polyline versus perimeter. Poly length versus perimeter, I'm guessing is what you're talking about. So that's a form of measurement. I'm going to hide my zoom controls here. Nope. There we go. So in your measurements, if you are in the review advanced profile, so review profiles, review advanced, that default title toolbar, hello, is going to give you these orange markers. And there's one for area, polygon, sketch to scale. Sorry, these are sketch to scale, not the measurements. I think my wife switched me to decaf and that didn't tell me. We have poly length and we have area, and we have perimeter. Why would you use one over the other? So let me zoom in here. Let's play with these. If I use perimeter, so come over here, use perimeter. I don't use perimeter very often. And if I want to go grab the perimeter of my Fortress of Solitude, why is this not snapping? Hold up. Snap to content. It's not snapping in this room. That's really weird. Okay, well, let's assume that it is snapping. I'm faking it now.
We
So
could
there's
note if you hold down your shift key, it will go orthogonal. It may not
Yes.
snap, but at least it'll get that orthogonal line.
Good tip there. So if I do perimeter, look, it's giving me the perimeter of this room, right? If I go to my markups list, it's going to give me my perimeter measurement here, which is 78, 5.5. Why would I use perimeter over poly length? Now, poly length is kind of special, right? Because if I do poly length, this is going to give me individual segments, and now it's snapping.
And now it's snapping.
Wait a minute.
I
Am I
think
losing my mind?
I think your review needed that caffeine as well. It was also converted to decaf.
Wait a minute. Does snapping not work with perimeter? It's snapping now. Okay, what about perimeter? Yeah, I think it was just review acting up. That's weird. Anyway.
The cat. It was the cat.
It's always the cat. So here's my perimeter. Here's my poly length. My poly length is also giving me a full perimeter. It will add them up if I tell it to, but individually it's giving me these links. So for those doing mill work or trim or anything else, you can get a compound length in there if you have that configured in your little settings here. So here you have an option to show caption. If you turn that off, that will turn off your label. See, I can toggle that on and off. Still give me the perimeter, but it's also giving me the independent links, which is pretty handy.
And how can I pull that text off the line? Because it's disruptive graphically.
It is disruptive graphically. Man, you got big words today. How do you do this without coffee?
I had caffeine, yeah. And
Okay.
it was infused with orange juice. So got
there you go. So one of the things with review is when in doubt, especially when it comes to moving text around, you're not going to get very far by using the grippy things, which is now a trademarked thing from Liz, and I have to or coder every time I say it. If you hold down shift, you can manipulate the label location. So this is mainly used when you're doing areas. I see this a lot. If you're using the area command and you want the text somewhere else and you try to move it, it's going to go everywhere and you're going to lose your mind. There's no way to do it without shift. So if you hold down shift, then you can move the actual label. So that's one that always pops up that seems to drive people crazy. If you do alt, that doesn't do things. If you do control, it will copy it. That's a Windows thing. So all three of those tools, shift, control, and alt, do different things on different commands. So experiment accordingly. Wait a minute. All right, let me get caught up on the chat here because this is saying, you're telling me you can show segment lengths on a perimeter. If I go to how? Oh, show segment values right there. Ta-da.
Wait, what was that wall area where you just were?
The wall area? Yeah.
Yeah. How does it know the wall height? Because it needs the height for the area, right?
Yes. And there is a Where is it
You
at?
have to set it. Thank you, David.
Wall area here. I don't use wall area ever. So there is a way to do that. Where is that at? If I want to get rid of that.
You have to give it a depth measure.
Activate depth. Where is activate depth?
Area.
Yeah, it's a tool I don't use.
Oh,
So
wait. Oh, yeah. You're just there on units. Go back.
there we
Right
go.
there. Yeah. Say like 10 feet. And then.
Oh, wall area. Look at that.
Oh, so cool. That's really cool.
So yeah, if you're doing, I think we actually used this last year or something when we were trying to figure out, we were using custom columns to figure out how many gallons of paint we would need to paint a wall. Or to paint a room, like, because we figured out how many stuff. There we go. There we go. Alex, love seeing an
Listen,
from estimators.
I take it Alex is an estimator.
And Matt's the architect.
Yeah. Hey, we're always open to learn. Estimators are smart people.
All right. If you draw an area, you can set depth and display volume. That's what I'm more used to using. Because I'm a civil guy. So when I'm talking about parking lots and depths and gravel pits and stuff like that. There we go. So wall area built in. And you can toggle that. Oh, depth. All right. I know Michael loves this dynamic status bar. I never use it.
I like the properties as well. I think it's because we came from AutoCAD. I did much a long time ago, but we all have grown accustomed to the properties panel.
I 100% agree with that. All of my property love comes from my AutoCAD days.
Yeah, and Revit. Same properties panel in Revit too.
Architects have access to the models of the sheets, so they don't need Bluebeam for their takeoffs. Correct.
Thank you, Ben.
Use depth when there is no elevation of a return on wall paneling. Okay, I can see that. Many different ways to do the same thing. All right. What else did we want to talk about today? Michael got in there with drawing the little squiggle, and we showed Liz's website, which also shows some tips for that. Another tip that was typed in there was that's funny. I like show autofill, do it quickly and move on. I don't like using this plan for that. I like using this plan for that.
Let me guess, because the door swings?
Yes. And maybe I'll go back for that same reason.
Okay.
So autofill is a heartbreaker. Why is this a heartbreaker? Because if you have any version of Review 20 or below, you have access to this tool. Dynamic fill is now only in the higher end subscription of Review. Boo. Insert noise there. But if I'm using dynamic fill, I can get better areas and perimeters and polylinks and spaces. So let me show you what I mean. If I'm using the area tool by itself, I can come in here and I can click around. Now, this is an odd shape. It's gonna make a mess. I can kind of get around here. It's just gonna take forever. Notice it is snapping, which is a nice touch, but it's not. I mean, I'm spending way too much time on this. I'm just gonna hit escape. Instead, I can go use the autofill, which is one of the dynamic fill, one of the only hotkeys I normally use because it's the best letter, J. See that? So if I use dynamic fill, I can then define my area, which I'll go back to, or I can tell it, hey, I want you to create a space or a shape or an area or a polylength or a perimeter or a volume. I'm going to go tell it I want it to be an area. I can have it do multiple things at the same time, which is pretty cool. And if I have things set up already, like landscaping in my special tools, I can have it do that too. So if I say this is sod landscaping, use my dynamic fill and hit apply. Now it went and found the areas. It did put little segments around the curves. So it's not 100% down to the, fine little thing, but it's pretty close. And it also incorporated the properties that I had pre-set up that exist here in my tool chest. So they're already there. Any of these special ones can be used when you do the dynamic fill. So,
side note on spaces for those Revit users, a space is a Revit room. It is not a Revit space. Yeah, I don't know if Jason, you knew that Revit actually has spaces.
I did not know that.
Which is not a room. So a review space equals a Revit room, not a Revit space.
All right. David's got a good one here. Take this, okay, drag it off to the side. So drag it off or drag the text. I'll move that over here. And then toggle line widths and measure it again. Ooh. Okay. Let's try this. I'm curious now. Same. Okay. Area 98.94 over here. If I click on this one, 0.97. So
300ths off.
yeah, I mean,
pretty close.
On a smaller issue, I could see that or smaller thing. So when you're using that dynamic fill, you got to be careful because it's actually going to the edge of that line weight. It's not going to the actual property. So that dynamic or that line weight, disable line weights down in the lower right-hand corner, it does have an effect. Is that why you've given up on that tool, Vince? It is pretty handy if you're, if giving up a couple hundredths is no big deal to you, go for it, right? But if you're trying to be super precise, this isn't the right tool for you. Good to note though. All right.
So autofill, just to clarify, it does take out the thickness of the line when you have thick line. Okay. Correct. So when using autofill, go razor thin lines.
Correct. All right. They are an issue. Because it did show up in a little bit, but like if I had a different space, it probably would have shown the number a little different. Oh, since I'm in here and since you're here, Brian, when would I use spaces in a set of civil drawings? I do have spaces set up in this one. So if you haven't used spaces, they're pretty awesome, right? Because they work well for organizing your markups into a specific area. So if I go down to my markups list, I can then click on the space and the markups that are in. I've just destroyed this drawing and done flattening a bunch of times, I'm guessing. There we go. All the markups that live in that Office 115A can be organized. How would I use this in a civil drawing? If I go back to my civil drawing, I would use this in, a parking lot. So I could have all my things that were related to, paving markups, but I could also do that through subjects. I would use it in maybe my profiles. There's different ways to do it. I think it's obviously more useful when you have defined rooms and defined areas like that. But in a civil plan, you could also do it per viewport.
You do asphalt paving area versus concrete paved area.
You could get around that with your properties and using your labels and subjects too, but that would be one thing. All right. Backspace to remove a click when doing a polyline or polylength. Hold up. Are you telling me if I'm drawing this and I hit backspace, get out of town?
Wow.
I did not know that one. That's a neat trick, Alex. So I'm drawing and oops, you hit backspace and it will take you back. You can delete while you're still in the command. Did everybody else know this? Because I feel like this is something new.
New to me.
Uh-huh.
Was there a shortcut to closing that shape?
I think
I believe is it C?
you're thinking AutoCAD now. Is there a shortcut to closing that shape? Enter does not work. That's only for other things. C does close it. Holy cow. Way to go, AutoCAD. So typing, or I'm doing my polylink going along here. If I hit C, it automatically closes it. Okay, everybody's liking the backspace. Yeah, Isaac's used to using Control Z. That's kind of my go-to as well. So if you hit Control Z, it will do the same thing. That's your undo. That's a Windows thing. So Control Z will do the same thing as backspace, but backspace is a neat trick. I tried to enter. Enter did not close that for me. Let me try that again. Enter just ended the command. It did not close it. All right. Try a polygon. Yeah, polygon. I would imagine that might do an enter instead. Enter will automatically close that. Obviously, this is not the right tool to use if I'm doing a polygon, because a polyline assumes it's not ever going to close, but you can do that. Double clicking sometimes works as well. Yes. What
That
did
was
you
me.
do? I was like, what?
I was circling this. You keep zooming on me. I was circling. Gosh darn it, stop zooming. Yeah, right there. That's what I was circling. That drives me nuts.
Oh, on the
Anyone else?
this?
Yes. That. Maybe just I'll clear all drawings.
as many times as I've been in this file, I've never noticed that.
Oh, it's the first thing I saw.
Interesting. Okay, that's gonna drive me crazy. All right, let me get caught up here. Continue the line. If you right click on the last point on the line, you can continue the line. All right, so I have seen this one. If I go back through here and I hit enter, I'm out of the command now, right? But if I wanted to go in here and continue this, I can obviously click on my line and do that, or I can go right click on the last point and go to, wasn't it continue? Where'd it go?
Control point add probably. No.
No. Okay. I don't know. That one's not working for me. Measurement tools only. Yeah, that one will work. Let's see, will it work on a straight up line? Nope.
Try a shape, like if you do start with a square as opposed to the polyline.
If you click on right on the point, you get an option to resume. I got nothing. And I'm on the control point. What if I hover? Nothing. Hit escape and try again. Nope. Yeah, that might be a measurement. All right. Other people are confirming too. Works for measurements. Yes, that is true. So if I'm doing a poly length, we talked about this a little bit, right? And then I hit enter, that one's done. If I go back to it and I right click, I have that resume right here. And if I resume that poly length measurement, then I can continue on. But it didn't work on a regular line. Interesting. Interesting. Sheldon's got a question. Quickest way to rotate all pages. This one, I would go to the thumbnails. I would hit Control A, grab them all, right click, rotate pages. And then I can rotate them all accordingly.
And that rotates and saves. Like they stay rotated. If you want to just rotate it just to see it, but not save it, there's a way to do that as well.
Yes, this comes up all the time, actually, for questions. And I'm guilty of making the same mistake. Sometimes when you get, especially if it's scanned, right, you get it printed and it shows up weird and you're like, what the heck is going on here? Rotating my view is different than rotating the page, right? I can rotate my view clockwise. I can rotate my view counterclockwise, which is these buttons here. But that's not actually rotating the document, meaning if I send this to somebody, they're going to show up in the proper orientation. However, if I go over here and I actually rotate these pages, that is rotating the document. So there we go. So yeah, if you've got scanned field notes and they show up weird, just rotate. And in that case, rotate the document, save it properly, so you don't have to go back and do this. But this is a support ticket issue that comes up all the time. Like, hey, all my stuff is looking weird, but I know when I printed it from AutoCAD, it shows up right. Chances are the view is askew. Oh, Brian with the quick tip. Control Shift R to rotate pages. There you go.
Nice.
Back on topic, good way to end it because we've run out of time, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We went on all sorts of weird tangents. It wasn't tied together very well, but that's okay. We'll get it right next week because next week is our 100th episode. Please join us. There's going to be fun prizes. There's going to be special guests. There's going to be a whole bunch of good stuff. Thank you, new folks, for joining MCR today. I will get caught up. I saw there were some extra questions. I'll get those answered for you. Check them out in the LinkedIn group. There is a LinkedIn group for Morning Coffee Review where I will be posting some more stuff today. You can use that all during the week, whenever you want to. If you've got a question that pops up, the community's here for you. That's what this group is all about. And with that, I will say